What's up? I'm John Middlekauff, the host of the 3 and Out podcast, and you can find it below in the description. Also, you're watching this on the Volumes YouTube channel. I need you to subscribe right now. Share it with your friends. Back at it with my man who's red hot. Stuckey 7-3, and one of the great plays so far of the year, the fade of the Chiefs, which the numbers backed it up. Didn't look pretty, but not only did they cover, they won outright. And Stuckey, you find him on Action Network. You can find him on Action Network podcast on Thursdays. Big Bets on Campus. We know the guy Kentucky, massive game. Mark Stoops might be coach of the year at this pace. Will Levis kicking everyone's ass. Playing Ole Miss, 9 a.m. kickoff for us on the West Coast. So Stuckey's bar will be getting after with his Tito's and Red Bulls. What's up, my man?
What's going on, man? I got a lot of your listeners were tweeting me for the Colts pick, and so I was glad that came through. Harrison Butker might get himself paid after that performance with the Chiefs special teams. And on the West Coast, 9 a.m., noon Eastern, it is a fantastic early slate for college football. So we'll get the weekend started off right on Saturday.
Let's dive into the NFL, and I guess we could start with the Ravens and the Bills. The Bills, I know you dive into these numbers. Statistically, that's got to be one of the greatest outlier games in the history of the league, right? 90 plays to, was it 90 to 39? That's just probably historically an outlier just in its, there's never been a ratio quite like that.
96 Jags you got to go back to find a win like a loss like that.
What was the play ratio in that game, do you know?
I think it was like 80
something crazy,
5 to 38 or something. Yeah, it was doubled up, and then the amount of yards given up, and 20 over 25 years ago.
It's weird. The Bills clearly, when they were healthy, are fantastic, but they're banged up. And then you got the Ravens, who I thought was going to be a Super Bowl contender, and not that they're not, but the reason I thought their defense was kind of like what we saw Sunday night with the Broncos and the Niners. You just wouldn't be able to score on them, but it turns out their defense might not be exactly as good as we thought. I guess you would just have to go with Lamar Jackson. Looks fantastic so far this year, scoring touchdown. Last week he threw 4, ran 1. I guess I would probably stay away from this game, but if I was going to bet, I'd go with the Ravens +3. How about you?
Yeah, you have to take the points here. The Ravens +3.5 and +3. It's, first of all, you're getting Harbaugh as a dog. He's one of the great underdog NFL head coaches in NFL history. Just behind Tomlin and Peyton, the third most profitable is John Harbaugh. He's also 4-0 against the spread as a home dog over the last 4 years while Lamar has been there. This is one of the best staffs in the NFL, one of the best special teams units in the NFL. So you're going to get all of those little things in a big game. And look, by the way, the Ravens, the Bills had an outlier loss. So did the Ravens. The Ravens had a 99% post-game win expectancy against the Dolphins. And they gave up a bunch of explosive plays at the end. The Dolphins scored 20 points. Those are the last 2 Dolphins wins, by the way. So perception of the Ravens, if they had won that game, and if the Bills had won that game, these are 2 3-0 teams. The difference is Buffalo is not the same team they were coming into the year. For example, your cornerbacks are decimated. Your backups are now hurt. You're missing an all-pro who's on IR. Now you put another Pro Bowl safety on IR, and Micah Hyde, his replacement came in last week and was dreadful. He's now the lowest rated safety in the NFL. And so much of what the Bills do is predicated on their 2 safeties on the back end, and Hyde and Poyer. They have injuries on the offensive line. They were down to their 3rd-string center last week. They have injuries. Gabe Davis is still banged up. Injuries on the defensive line. So this team is wounded and is coming off, another road game where they were cramping up on all across the field, and now you're going to a Baltimore team that's rolling offensively. Lamar Jackson. The big question coming into the year for me with Baltimore, I think their defense will be fine. Their secondary now, Peters and Humphrey aren't on a pitch count, and they're back. They need some edge rush help. That's why they signed Pierre-Paul, and we'll see if Houston's healthy. But I think their defense will figure it out and be okay. It was Lamar against the blitz. and he's shredded it. You go back to the playoff game that the Bills won against the Ravens a couple years ago. They blitzed 50% of the time. Lamar Jackson was lost. Lamar Jackson had never thrown for 3 touchdowns at 150 yards against the blitz in his career. He did it in the first half 2 weeks ago, and then he did it again last week against the Patriots, who blitzed 50% of the time. So this offense is rolling. Home dog, great atmosphere against a wounded Bills team. I think you got to take the points here.
You would say really the only knock on Lamar, obviously elite player, great guy, everyone's rooting for him, are the 2 playoff games that stand out early on. That Tennessee game when they punked him, I think a couple years ago when they went on that run, and then a couple years later that Bills game. So when people just and I kind of do it sometimes, can Lamar win the Super Bowl? Well, if he continues to figure it out, like he is every bit as dangerous as these other quarterbacks, right? Because we've seen him do it in the regular season. The knock is just in the playoffs. Can you fool him? Will he throw picks? Will the passing game, kind of get stalled? Well, if they can still be explosive in the passing game, they have one of the better offenses in the league, right?
Yeah, and look, it's not the best. It's not the best receiving group. He's never had the best receiving group. His offensive line has been banged up. Last week he was playing with a 3rd-string left tackle on his blind side, rookie who had never played left tackle in college or the NFL. He just got thrown in there. And he's
the NFL, baby.
Shredding the Patriots. So, the question with Lamar is, what will the league now adjust to? Because the Ravens have adjusted, but the league is, by the time you get to the playoffs, it's like, all right, here's all the film, here's what's worked. And they don't have receivers he's not the most accurate quarterback in NFL history. They don't have receivers that are going to go make big plays in coverage. So, it's kind of a cat and mouse game. At first, everyone played zone and said we have to face Lamar so he can't run, and he shredded them early. So then they said, let's play man, and Lamar couldn't fit it in the tight windows, and he struggled. Started to, his accuracy issues were persisting. Then they said, let's add in the blitz, cover 0 blitz, struggle some more. Well, now, they had all offseason to work on this. It looks like against man and the blitz, they've have some beaters there. So it's like, okay, what does the league now do to adjust to the obviously unique talent and offense in the Ravens?
Okay, Indy, Tennessee, the divisional matchup of 2 teams that might not be any good. I know they won last week, but to me, I think Indy stinks. And, Tennessee, not that I'm a huge believer by any means, but, you've like you just said with Harbaugh, Tomlin, there is something. I think Vrabel's really good, and clearly this is a less talented team than he's had given the injuries they have, and AJ's got traded. But I just, in this situation, I'd have to take him with the points. How about you?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to take and by the way, you were right when we went head-to-head last week with the Lions ended up covering. So good call there.
I like Dan Campbell. Shit, they should have won, Stuckey.
I know. All he does is cover. I'm taking the Colts here for one simple reason. I mean, look, the Titans last week, I'm super low on the Titans, and it's no fault of Vrabel. It's this what happened with this roster. Yeah. And last week, yes, they beat the Raiders, but the Raiders were in the red zone 6 times and scored 16 points, including a pick that went off Waller's hands. The Titans got in the red zone 3 times and scored 3 touchdowns. And it still came down to a 2-point conversion that the Raiders couldn't execute on. I was not impressed with the Titans last week. It's just a roster that's void of talent. You're now missing your best edge rusher, your top receiver from last year, your left tackle and best offensive lineman. And I think what this boils down to is one simple stat. And it's if you look at the rush stats for both teams. Rush defense for Indy, tops in the league, should get Leonard back too this week so far. Tennessee, dead last in basic rush defense and rush explosive defense. Everyone is running all over them. No one is running on Indy. Taylor should have a day here. I don't really trust Matt Ryan. You saw him falling over the field last week. But Taylor should have a day, and then Henry should get bottled up, which then just crushes the play-action game, which is all Tennessee has with their receivers. I think ultimately the best unit on the field will be Indy's defense at home. So if you can lay a field goal or less, I'll roll with it. But I agree with you. I think ultimately the Jags win this division.
I think I'm with you. Big game. I mean, Jags-Eagles, that's honestly one of the top 2 or 3 games this weekend. Who would have thought when the season started? Okay, this, for the last 15 years would have been one of the better games on the slate. Rodgers, Brady. Now you remove Brady. Shit, you might remove Mac Jones as well. This could be Rodgers, Hoyer, Lambeau Field. There's a lot of points. I mean, 9.5. I don't know. I mean, I think the Patriots. I just don't think they're very good. Now, I would be stunned if Mac plays. I know Belichick and those guys are so weird with the injuries. Now, Mac hasn't exactly lit the world on fire this year. I mean, I think he's got 4 or 5 picks so far. And if he's injured, if somehow he is able to play, that would seem pretty crazy to me. But, maybe Billy Zappi comes out of the bullpen and gets the cover. This is probably a stay away from me. I know you're leaning one way here.
Yeah, I took the Patriots at 10.5. If you can get double digits, I would take them. I think it's just too many points for this Green Bay offense to lay right now against not a good. I don't think the Patriots are good. They're not bad, just an average team. And the Packers are still trying to figure out their offense. I mean, they didn't score in the second half against the Bears. They came out with a great game plan, and Rodgers was cooking against Tampa, obviously an elite defense. And then they didn't score again, and they held on for a 14-12 win. So without Devontae Adams, they're still trying to figure out what this offense looks like. I'm assuming the Patriots will have, off a loss, will have a great game plan. Last time I bet the Patriots was on the road after a loss. And by the way, Belichick 48-22-1 against the spread off a loss. Some of that, yes, is with Brady, but he's had success with Jones, Newton, Castle in this spot. How about this? He's 25-3 against the spread on the road after a loss as either an underdog or a favorite of less than 7 points. 25-3. That includes 9-0 against the spread as an underdog after a loss on the road. Obviously, there's some Brady in there as well. So, when I look at this game from an X and O standpoint, there's a couple things that could work in the Patriots.
Are you expecting Hoyer to play in this game?
Yeah, expect Hoyer. Now, the last time Hoyer started, he's lost 11 straight starts. He's like 60% against the spread, though. He's covered his dog more times than not. He was catching double digits against the Chiefs. And so only time Belichick's ever been caught double digits in his career. A couple years ago when the Chiefs were rolling, he forgot to spike the ball at the end of the half, cost some points. Yeah. Had a bad pick. So you got to hope that doesn't happen. Then Stidham came in. Maybe Bailey Zappi comes in and gets the back door if he plays like that again. And I love Bailey Zappi. But yeah, I expect Hoyer. He at least knows the offense. But what New England could do here is lean on its run game. You can run the ball a little bit on Green Bay. Jair Alexander, their top corner, is a little banged up. I think they'll probably play really slow, shorten the game. Green Bay also tends to play really conservative at the end of the games once they have a lead. And then another factor is the special teams. The Packers special teams have been disastrous for 2 years, one of the worst units in the NFL. Cost them a playoff game last year. Patriots are always going to be in the top half. I mean, Nick Folk, who never misses from under 50. I think he's made 54 in a row. Some hidden points there. Belichick off a loss. Double digits against the Packers offense, still trying to figure itself out. I'll take it, but it's a hold your nose play.
Okay, you were on the Raiders last week. It was hard for me to disagree with you. Something feels off with them. There have been a lot of just on the social media breakdowns of Derek, him and Devontae not being on the same page. Clearly, having followed Carr's career since Fresno State, I think he's under so much pressure in his own head, and he's just not playing that well. In what's crazy because he's got Waller, he's got Devontae, he's got Josh. It's just not really worked. Now there's no team given their expectations coming into the season probably that's more must win. I mean, you go on 4, are we headed toward like a 6-win season? But I don't love the matchup here. Listen, the Broncos offense, something's off, but that defense is legit. I mean, I think the team speed, the pass rush, the corners. I mean, they can put Surtain, fall around Devontae. He's elite. I think it's going to be hard. This is not the game that you want to be in must-win, just given the defensive matchup for an offense that clearly they're just not on the same page, and it's just, which is crazy given their talent. I don't know if I could lay money on the Broncos because I don't trust what Hackett and Russell, but I have a hard time seeing the Raiders flourish against this defense.
Yeah, I hesitantly back the Raiders here. If it doesn't work out, it might be the last time all season. And yeah, it'll go.
Do you agree though the matchup of their offense? Do you view the Broncos defense as top notch?
Yeah, no, they're a top 10 unit for sure with upside for top 5, and But here's the thing. This is sort of a perception thing in that, yes, there's something wrong with both of these teams. The Broncos offense is inept. I mean, Russell Wilson looks like he's Brian Hoyer, and he might be washed a little bit. He also just isn't being Russell Wilson in this offense. He can't run around. That's how he makes plays. Without that, Russell Wilson, you might as well bring back Drew Lock if you're not going to let him run around and sit in the pocket. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL with a clean pocket, too. If you just look at completion percentage over expectation, 4th worst. And we're talking about guys like Geno Smith's been a lot better than him throwing the ball. It's crazy. So there's some expectation here, like a perception of, yes, there's something off with the Raiders, but they almost win that game against Tennessee. They go 1 of 12 on 3rd down. They score 16 points in the red zone. Waller drops 2 touchdown passes. They lose by 2 because they don't get a 2-point conversion late. Okay, they were right there. They played the Chargers even, statistically, in week 1 on the road when the Chargers were healthy. When I think the Chargers are healthy, one of the best rosters in the NFL. And then they took their foot off the gas, up 3 touchdowns in the first half. Lose on a fluke, maybe the 2-point conversion. By the way, if two-point conversions go differently, they could be 2-1. And then they lose in overtime on a Hunter Renfrow fumble. So yeah, things aren't right, but like they could easily be 3-0, 2-1 instead of 0-3. And on the other hand, Denver could be 0-3. Jimmy G doesn't step out of bounds, and the Texans, like they had to fight tooth and nail to beat the Texans at home in Denver, where they're always good early in the year with that altitude advantage. So, yeah, I just don't trust this Denver offense yet. And the Raiders, there's something off, and I don't trust McDaniels, but they haven't been as bad as everyone is making it. Like, they are right in games. I'll give them one more shot to get this done because I think Russell Wilson coming out after the win over San Fran and saying this is a championship effort. Like, yeah, the other team stepped out of bounds. That's the championship effort. So I don't think they're going to make any drastic changes yet. I do love that Hackett said, okay, I don't know how to do game management. They brought a Ravens guy in. I like that, like admitting your mistakes. But Russ is off now. I'll trust the Raiders. One more shot. I hope they throw it to Adams 30 times. But everyone is it's a week-to-week league. Everyone is making way too much of the Raiders 0-3 start and not giving the Broncos enough of flack because they could easily be 0-3 and the Raiders could be 3-0. Like they're not that far off, but there is something off with both of these teams. I'll trust the home team.
I agree. Both these two teams fall under the umbrella like stud players kind of everywhere. Like yeah. I mean the Max Crosby looks fantastic this year. And obviously they got studs on offense.
Where's Broncos Chandler Jones, though? Chandler Jones needs to show up.
That's been a disaster signing so far, for sure. The one thing that would make me nervous in this game is the Raiders' offensive line. That Broncos, Randy Gregory was flying around last week. This is an interesting watch. Whatever side you back, this is going to be fascinating because if the Raiders go 0-4, Josh McDaniels a one and done guy, and like you said, the Broncos. At any moment, they can lose again, and all of a sudden, it feels like their franchise is on fire.
Yep, I saw someone on Twitter say Belichick didn't name an offensive coordinator because he knew McDaniels would be back in 5 weeks. I saw that too. That was a good one. Which, honestly, who knows? Could happen.
Belichick, they might win 4 games. Belichick gets fired, mutually departs. Josh McDaniels just goes back and becomes the head coach. I could see that. Keep an eye on that one. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.